Hi, everybody. Thanks for logging in for tonight's webinar. We are just going to give it a few more minutes to see and to allow a few more people to log in. So we'll be joining in just a moment. Maybe I'll go through a couple of housekeeping items. So if you have any questions throughout the presentation, perhaps put them in the chat function up at the top, and we'll keep an eye on any questions coming throughout the presentation. There might be a few opportunities to stop throughout, but we'll probably keep the bulk of the questions to the end of Nicole's presentation. I will quickly introduce some of the folks that you see on the screen here. My name is Sarah Ashton. I am the manager for the Central East Regional Cancer Program and the Prevention and Cancer Screening team, as well as the Indigenous Cancer Program. We have Caitlin Loudon here, who has been our workhorse to make this happen tonight. So thanks so much to Caitlin for pulling this all together. Shannon Burke is also joining us. She is the regional director for the Central East Regional Cancer Programs and for regional programs for Lakeridge Health. And most importantly, who we're all here to see, is Nicole Othinga. So I'll just do a quick bio and then I'll hand it over to Nicole. So Nicole is a registered dietitian with the College of Dietitians of Ontario, holding a bachelor's and a master's degree in human nutrition. In addition, Nicole holds multiple designations, including more than 800 hours of diabetes education to become a certified diabetes educator. Nicole is a practicing dietitian in Northumberland Hills Hospital in Cobourg, supporting cancer care patients at the Northumberland Hills Cancer Clinic. She also runs her own virtual and in-person nutrition counseling practice located in Durham region. You can find Nicole on local or national TV and on Instagram, where she is known as the plant-based meal prep expert. And we are thrilled to have Nicole here, so I will hand it over to you. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Sarah, for the introduction. And thank you, everyone, for coming to my talk today. So I'm going to be going ahead and sharing my screen. And as Sarah mentioned, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, just throw them in the chat box. And if they're pertinent to my slide, I can stop and answer them. But we can definitely answer the majority of the questions at the end of the presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen right now. All right. Perfect. So my talk today is going to be on powerful nutrients for cancer prevention and beyond. We're going to be getting into the more granular, what specific nutrients and certain foods are helpful for hopefully preventing cancer, as well as foods that have components in them that actually can be, known to potentially promote certain types of cancers from developing. So we're going to want to limit those foods there. And then at the end, I'm all about meal planning, so we're going to be getting into meal planning a little bit here. And everyone attending is also going to receive a cancer prevention meal plan that I went ahead and put together. So we don't really need to spend much time on this intro slide since I've already had my introduction. So I'm just going to flip back past that. So So starting here, and probably the reason why a lot of you are here is that you recognize the role that nutrition plays in preventing cancer. So it's the stat I included here was that diet may actually account for as much as 30 to 35% of cancer-related deaths, which is quite alarming. So, kind of at the same time, though, that also empowers us and demonstrates to us that we actually might have, like some control over the prognosis of the condition or the disease of cancer, and hopefully reducing the risk of death or the risk of reoccurrence. So let that stat, it is alarming, but it's also empowering that we can actually make a big difference in our lifestyle. So I also included the slides too, which was quite interesting. So showing the link behind lifestyle and diet components that can actually really help to reduce cancer cases by 2042. So we do see a correlation between excess body fat and cancer. So if excess body fat was reduced by 5% by 2029, potentially there's 576 cases of cancer that could be prevented. As well on the side here, about 1,500 cases can be prevented if daily processed meat consumption was just reduced by 1 serving by 2029. At the bottom, talking about foods to include, if we just if inadequate fruit intake was reduced by 10% by 2029, we could potentially prevent about 1,200 cases. If daily red meat consumption was reduced by 1 serving, almost 1,000 cases are prevented. And if inadequate vegetable intake was reduced by 10%, which doesn't seem like a lot, we can prevent about 821 cases. So yeah, so I mean, small changes can really make a huge difference, is kind of what we're kind of seeing here. We don't have to make necessarily always drastic lifestyle changes right away. Those simple, changes that this is demonstrating here, reducing processed and red meats, increasing vegetables and fruit, potentially reducing body fat if we need to, could actually make a huge difference. So wanted to include a few more stats here as well. So, we're kind of seeing a correlation between diets consisting of adequate fruit and vegetable consumption reduce the risk of developing these types of cancers, esophageal, stomach, lung, pancreatic, and prostate cancer. Diets high in, I want to actually preface this by saying diets high in added sugars, because we also know sugar is present in many foods and very nutritious foods, but diets high in added sugars from kind of more processed foods, saturated fats, trans fats, and low fiber foods and high sugar drinks increase the risk for endometrial, breast, and colorectal cancers. The addition of fruit, one serving of fruit per day, is estimated to prevent 85,000 cases, cancer cases in Canada, which is so significant. And then the eating excess red meat and processed meat consumption and inadequate fruit and vegetable intake contributed to approximately 23,000 new cancer cases in Canada in 2022. So in 1 year. So yes, hopefully I've convinced you that diet and lifestyle can play a big role in cancer development and prognosis. So I'm just showing you the different chapters I'm going to be going through today. So we're going to start with foods and nutrients to try to minimize and hopefully reduce that development of cancer. The next chapter is that we're going to focus on foods and nutrients to add to our diet. And then that third chapter, we're putting it all together and creating that cancer fighting meal plan together. So chapter 1, so foods and nutrients to minimize. So, and as was mentioned too, I do support the Cancer Center at Northumberland Hills Hospital. I get this question. I've been getting this question a lot recently about sugar. We have this there's the notion that sugar does feed cancer, but I also like to preface that we have to differentiate between added and naturally occurring sugars. Research does show an indirect link that eating too much sugar over time can lead to more body fat. Research also shows that too much body fat can also increase your risk for types of cancers. So there's that kind of indirect link there. But just knowing, again, we have sugar in fruit, we have sugar in vegetables. So it's best to eat plenty still of the vegetables, fruit, whole grains, beans, and lentils. Although these foods have natural sugars, they also have cancer-fighting substances, which we'll go into soon. And just limiting the amount of added sugar in your diet. For example, I think probably the biggest change we can make is really limiting those sugar sweetened beverages, pot, fruit drinks, energy drinks, etc. Certainly in certain circumstances, they can be helpful. Let's say endurance athletes, they need that quick fuel, but for the majority of our population, that can be a quick swap to help to reduce our intake of added sugars. On to the next food. So red meat, so including beef, pork, and lamb. There is strong evidence that eating high amounts of red meat can increase the risk of colorectal cancer. Current research shows that there's certain chemicals in meats that cause these foods to be carcinogenic. So when a chemical in red meat, which is called heme, is broken down, creates those nitriso chemicals that are formed, and then these are found to damage the cells that line the bowel. Which can lead to cancer. So that's kind of the pathway there. So recommendations: limiting red meat to no more than 3 portions of a week. So 3 portions of about 4 ounces. So we want to have less than 12 ounces a day. I normally too just tell my clients to try not to have no more than 2 eating occasions of red meat in a week, knowing that most people might actually have a greater portion than just a 4-ounce portion. So yeah, really trying to limit that and find alternatives to the red meat in your meals, I would certainly recommend. In terms of processed meats, so that's including sausages, ham, bacon, hot dogs, and salami. There's very strong evidence that eating high amounts of processed meats can increase the risk of colorectal cancers. And even some evidence suggests that processed meats may increase the risk of lung, pancreatic, stomach, esophagus, and nasopharyngeal cancers. So kind of a similar pathway to red meats in terms of how cancer can be developed in the colon. As well, to nitrites and nitrates are added to processed meats to help with the preservation process. And again, that also contributes to those nitriso chemicals that can lead to bowel cancer. So often I recommend cutting out processed meats altogether, or keep them to an absolute minimum. And in my practice too, I see a lot of people consuming processed meats for lunch, and I understand how they're a convenient option. But I think trying to kind of put on our more creative thinking hat in terms of a sandwich can be a great option for lunch, but let's change it to a different type of protein. Let's make a chicken salad, let's say, with some Greek yogurt instead of mayo, and then put that in a wrap. Let's do a plant-based lunch as well too. Maybe we create a chickpea salad, mash some chickpeas, again, with some hummus or something, put that on some bread or a wrap, and that could be a really great alternative. So really trying to kind of cut out processed meats if we can. And the last substance to really reduce in our diet to help to reduce that risk of cancer is alcohol. So including beer, wine, or distilled liquor. There's really no safe amount of alcohol, and it does cause quite a bit of risk. So increased risk of breast and esophageal cancers starts at less than 1 drink per day. And I know that guidelines around alcohol has changed recently, but that risk of breast and esophageal cancer at 1 drink per day, that 1 drink a day can seem innocent, but knowing that that can increase our risk for those types of cancers. Increased alcohol consumption equals increased cancer risk. And then the evidence between these other types of cancers, including breast, colorectal, esophageal, liver, mouth, pharynx, larynx, and stomach cancers. And then just kind of including kind of what happens. So ethanol, pure alcohol, is broken down into a toxic byproduct called acetaldehyde, which in combined with ethanol can damage cells by binding with DNA, leading to incorrect cell replication. And drinking a lot of alcohol can increase circulating estrogen levels, which could actually lead to breast cancers in women. So those are some pieces around foods to minimize. Now, maybe on more of a positive note, looking at foods and nutrients to add to our diet here. And there's a lot more during this chapter. It was just kind of those 4 things to try to minimize in the previous chapter. So in summary, the American Institute for Cancer Research recommends eating a mostly plant-based diet, which focuses on fruits, vegetables, legumes, and whole grains. Plant-based foods are full of cancer fighters like vitamins, minerals, fiber, and phytochemicals. And even too, if I kind of go back here, when I say plant-based too, plant-based doesn't necessarily have to mean 100% plant-based, but there is a benefit to eating, the majority of your food intake to be from plants. And if we have animal products in our diet, to kind of make them a smaller component in our diet. It's even interesting the ways that maybe a lot of us might have grew up, thinking about, okay, meat, like an animal protein is the star of the plate. But I think if we even shift that viewpoint to think about, okay, how can we make plants the star of the plate? Growing up, it would be, okay, what's for dinner? Chicken or beef or, something else. But maybe we can kind of shift it and say, oh, I'm having this, sauteed vegetable mix along with some quinoa. Okay, and then we'll have some chicken as well too. So takeaway, try to make the majority of your plate to be from plants. So what are phytochemicals? I might have mentioned this word already. So phytochemicals are plant chemicals that have protective or disease prevention properties. So they've been shown to stimulate the immune system, prevent DNA damage, help repair DNA, slow the growth of tumors, regulate hormones, and trigger damaged cells to die before they can actually multiply. So many phytochemicals are antioxidants, which antioxidants might be a term that we're more familiar with, which prevent the body cells from damage that can lead to cancer and other diseases. So, which foods are the best sources of phytochemicals? So, maybe I'll kind of open this up to the chat. Any thoughts on which foods are really great sources of these plant chemicals or cancer fighters? You can just type it in the chat. And, maybe you can just put your thoughts there. And chances are you might be guessing some of the foods that are rich sources of phytochemicals. Um, And I don't have access to the chat, actually. I can't see what's going on in there, but you can just put your thoughts there.
I'm keeping an eye on it right now, not
Oh,
seeing any answers just yet.
okay.
But while we are maybe waiting, is it okay if we go back to a quick question about the alcohol?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. The question we have here is, does ethanol increase estrogen in men as well?
Hmm. That's a good question. I mean, my thoughts would be it likely would. I think just the fact that females would have, naturally higher levels of estrogens, we see the increased incidence more so in females of, the breast cancers from an increased alcohol consumption is because our estrogen baseline, is at a higher level. So that's my educated guess. I mean, I don't have any literature to back that up, but that's kind of my thought process there.
Great. Thanks so much, Nicole.
You're
Um,
welcome.
I'm not seeing any thoughts just yet in the chat, so maybe
That's
we're
okay.
we're at the right place to learn a bit more.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Okay, yeah. So which foods are the best sources of phytochemicals? So we're going to start with berries. So berries include strawberries, raspberries, blackberries, blueberries, and cranberries. So they contain a phytochemical, allergic acid and vitamin C that actually hinder tumor growth and protect cells' DNA. They're also a good source of dietary fiber, which can increase fullness, assist with weight management and gut health as well. We know our gut is responsible for so many things in our body here. They also contain anthocyanins, which also are found to inhibit the growth of cancer cells and stimulate destruction of cancer cells. Um, so the berries are a great one. And, include berries, I think, I think we often think of adding your berries to your breakfast option. I love to include berries in my overnight oats, have them for a snack. I know they're kind of getting more so out of season, but I think actually a point I would like to make would be frozen berries are actually a really great option. And I would say nutrient wise, you're not actually getting a lot of nutrient change between the fresh and the frozen version. So I would say if the frozen berries are more accessible to you, definitely include those into your diet. I know in a household, it's me and my husband. Sometimes I love the fresh berries, but sometimes they get moldy very quickly, so sometimes the frozen berries are still a great option. They're still nutrient dense, still have those phytochemicals in there. So, and then the cruciferous veggies. So those are the ones that include broccoli, kale, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, bok choy, cabbage, and arugula. The top nutrients include fiber, magnesium, and folate. Folate helps to maintain and repair DNA. An excellent source of isocyanates, and that's the bitter component of these foods, which help to block tumor growth and cause cancer cells to die. So these phytochemicals have been found to prevent or protect certain types of cancers, such as colon, liver, lung, stomach, small intestine, and breast cancers as well. So the cruciferous veggies, I mean, they're so great to include throughout your day as well. I mean, I think, roasting like some cauliflower and throwing them, like I made a buffalo cauliflower the other day. It's so delicious, especially now that football season is going on. What a great way to include that into your diet. Doing like a shaved Brussels sprout salad is also a great way to enjoy it. Or same with a cabbage too, kind of taking some cabbage and creating like a coleslaw mix out of it, which could actually be a great thing to add to wraps along with some great protein. Yeah, so many different things that you could do with these veggies. And it's yeah, getting creative, I think, is something I like to encourage my clients to do, because I think, it's sure, boiling veggies was something I was exposed to as I grew up. And I think I decided I didn't like certain types of cruciferous veggies. But if we get creative, I think you're going to find ways that you really do enjoy them. And then the carotene containing foods. So that's including carrots, sweet potatoes, mango, corn, cantaloupe, squash, and peppers. So they contain beta carotene that may help control abnormal cell growth. And carotenoids protect against cancers of the mouth, pharynx, larynx, and have also been found to reduce the growth of some breast, lung, skin, and stomach cancer cells. So and those are really great. A lot of these foods that actually a lot of these plant foods, they do tend to be a bit more well liked than, let's say, some of the cruciferous veggies. But again, roasting the sweet potatoes and adding that to a bowl. For example, I had a roasted sweet potato and lentil bowl for lunch today. That's a great way to, and actually a fun fact too, when you're roasting and adding some oil to something like the carrots and the sweet potatoes, the vitamin A they contain is more absorbable. So it's actually a good thing to kind of roast them and add some oil as well. And same with squash too. Squash season, you could do spaghetti squash, acorn squash. Spaghetti squash is actually a really easy thing to do. If we cut it in half, throw it in the microwave, then you can actually peel back the squash with a fork. So, yeah, many different ideas there. And then the allium foods, so that includes leeks, chives, onion, garlic, scallions, and shallots. The compounds in garlic have been shown to decrease growth of tumors in the prostate, bladder, colon, and stomach cancers. These compounds especially reduce the risk of cancers of the digestive tract. So really good for your gut health and all those different types of organs there. So, and so they contain that protective compound that has preventative effects against skin, colon, and lung cancers. So I think I probably include garlic and onion in every single thing I make. Maybe not my breakfast oatmeal, but most most lunches and dinner, I think. But yeah, getting creative with those. Now, legumes. I think legumes are getting a little bit more popular, I would say, in the last 10 years or so. So those are gonna include beans, including chickpeas, kidney beans, black beans, lima beans, and pinto beans, along with peas and lentils. They're loaded with fiber and protein, and if someone is eating a plant-based diet, it's knowing that they are a great source of protein, and there's different ways to incorporate them into your diet. Centering our meals around those is going to be helpful. So that increases feelings of fullness, which can help with weight management. And obesity may increase the risk for certain types of cancers. Fiber feeds good bacteria in the digestive tract to keep cells healthy. Legumes also contain a type of starch called resistant starch, which is used by bacteria in the colon to actually protect cells. They're also a good source of folate, so they may decrease the risk for cancer of the breast, pancreas, colon, other parts of the gastrointestinal tract because of its role in cell division and repairing damaged cells. So, with these legumes, there's really endless ways to use them. I mean, we're heading into soup season, and chili season, making like a lentil soup or some kind of chili. Or even, my example of the football with the buffalo cauliflower, we could do like a sloppy joe made with some lentils, throwing them in salads, making falafels, or even being creative and incorporating things like chickpeas and making a chickpea cookie dough. Or, I think a lot of us might like hummus here. There's, yeah, different ways to kind of include them in your diet. Actually, one more thing I have to mention, roasting your legumes, or you can even get pre-roasted chickpeas, are such a great snack. And a few companies now will make them in individual sort of snack packs that you can throw in your kids' lunches or your lunches and grab and go. They're a great protein and fiber-rich snacks. So yeah. And those red and pink foods. So that includes red grapefruit, tomatoes, watermelon, peppers, apples, pomegranates, cherries, and beets. So they contain lycopene. So lycopene is the phytochemical to protect that protects against prostate and colorectal cancers. So the best source of lycopene is tomato sauce and sauce. And actually, lycopene is more available when it's cooked and it's best absorbed with fat, actually. So some nutrients are like that. Even the example with the carotene, it's actually best absorbed with fat. So when let's say you're making a tomato soup, maybe you add it like sort of some avocado on top, and that's going to be help with the absorption. Or you can add some coconut milk to it to kind of make it really creamy, and that's going to ensure you're getting a lot of lycopene from it. They're also a great source of fiber, carotenoids, and vitamin C, which all protect against cancer by protecting healthy cells. And then nuts. So I mean, walnuts, cashews, peanuts, hazelnuts, almonds, Brazil nuts, pecans, pistachios, and pine nuts. Walnuts are found to decrease growth of tumor cells, and they contain high amounts of polyphenols and phytochemicals that have antioxidant properties, protecting cell and DNA damage. Walnuts are the type of nuts actually that have the highest amount of omega-3s. So I'm often recommending walnuts to people who can benefit from higher amounts of omega-3s. So omega-3 is a type of fat that can actually help to reduce inflammation in the body and can also help with reducing our cholesterol, our bad or LDL cholesterol. So yeah, so walnuts, throw them in. I'm just thinking breakfast oatmeals are great. Have them as a snack as well. So yeah. So the question, how much should you be eating? So these are some guidelines, and feel free to kind of take a screenshot or write these numbers down of these kind of cancer fighting foods. So fruit, having 1.5 to 2 cups of fruit per day. A serving of fruit is about a half a cup, or a medium-sized piece of fruit, or 1 cup of berries, I would say. But yeah, aiming for sort of 2 or 3 servings of fruit a day is great. And then vegetables, a serving of veggies is about 1 cup. So we should be having at least, I normally say, excuse me, at least 5 servings of veggies a day. Nuts, half a cup of nuts per week, and a serving of nuts is about 1/4 of a cup. And then you can even increase that amount, even having 1/4 of a cup per day would be fine. And legumes, 1.5 cups of legumes per week. And the serving size is about 1/4 to half a cup of legumes. And if you're making that your main protein source, I would actually say closer to 3/4 of a cup is what we should be having. So that was the second chapter of foods to incorporate more in your diet that have cancer fighting potential. So on to our last chapter, and this is a little bit longer. I'm going to be talking more about meal planning and how we're going to incorporate those foods into our meal plan. So if we're not into meal planning and meal prepping right now, I'm going to try to convince us why we should be. So there's so many benefits to meal planning and meal prepping. So I mean, it's a way to add nutrients and reduce overeating. If you have your meals already planned ahead of time, it's less likely you're going to come home starving and wondering, what you're going to be making for dinner. And it's more likely you're going to be having regular meals throughout the day. I think a reason why we can overeat at times is probably because we haven't ate adequately throughout the day. And planning our meals ahead of time, we're more likely to be able to plan more balanced meals. And then therefore we're going to be adding nutrients. We can plan these cancer fighting foods into these meal plans that we create for ourselves. We're also going to save money when meal planning and meal prepping. Everything is so expensive nowadays. I know food is expensive at the grocery store, but with a strategic meal plan where, let's say, if we have multiple uses for the same ingredients, then we're going to be reducing food waste and therefore saving money. And we also know it's very expensive to get foods out as well. So trying to meal plan, they're fighting cravings, kind of similar to the first point too. We're going to be eating probably more regularly and more balanced throughout the day. And then again, we're less likely to kind of come home and have these, kind of, because we're running almost on an empty tank, having those cravings, and that's going to, lead us to, let's say, getting a meal out or ordering Uber Eats on our app there. So can also help with a better relationship with food and appreciating the process of where a food is starting out and how it's incorporated into the recipe and learning about the food, how it's best cooked, how to manipulate it. And I just think that kind of increased, connection with the food can actually help us be in a better relationship with food, especially if we've done, let's say if we've had a history of dieting in the past, sometimes just appreciating food from that level with the meal planning and spending time with it is helpful to kind of overcome that. So. And this is actually a little bit outdated, but this graphic just kind of shows the difference between actually, yeah, these prices are different now, but probably that salad might be closer to $10 to $15. And then versus making something at home, is definitely going to be a fraction of the price there. So when I say, meal planning and meal prepping, it can look different for everyone, but I like to just make sure I break it up into the three steps, which is planning, shopping, and cooking. Because I think if, let's say on Sunday, we say, okay, I'm going to do a meal prep Sunday, that can be great. But if we're trying to do the meal planning, the shopping, and the cooking all in one day, it's a lot at once. And we might end up resenting the process in the future. But I just would encourage us to break it down into the three steps. So one day, or it doesn't have to be a full day, but just let's say if we have, let's say by Thursday, we want to be planning the meals that we're going to be cooking for the next week. Make a list starting slow. I always say to have 10-minute meal ideas if something goes wrong. Let's say your kids don't like this recipe that you made, and or let's say something goes bad in the fridge, and we need a new plan. So it's like to have those 10-minute meal ideas just on hand, ready to go. Some of my 10-minute meal ideas, I usually have sort of leafy green in my fridge, and then I always have frozen edamame or canned beans or lentils in my pantry. So I'll throw that together there. And I know what I normally have too is when I'm doing my meal prep, I'll cook extra rice or quinoa, and I'll actually freeze them in individual bags. And then they're actually really easy to take out of the fridge and then throw them in a frying pan, and you can kind of warm up your rice or your quinoa in 2 minutes and then throw them, let's say, into your salad. Because those things take, 20 minutes to half an hour to cook. So sometimes you just don't have that time. So yeah, always have those quick and easy meal ideas on hand. And actually, this is a question I want to ask the audience. So if we could put this in the chat, it's less of a skill testing question and more of what meal do you struggle with the most and why? And when I say struggle, maybe it's, let's say we end up skipping certain meals. I don't know, let's say we have trouble finding a good option for a certain meal or having a balanced option at a meal. So I love to hear from folks in the audience, and there might be some, kind of similar answers, but what meal do you struggle with the most and why is that? Are you skipping breakfast? Are you not having a great sort of sufficient lunch, or are we overeating at dinner? I want to hear from anyone who's willing to volunteer what meal they struggle with. So I'll just give us maybe a minute or two.
I can start just to see if that will help, but I would say the meal that I struggle with the most is probably breakfast. When I wake up in the morning, I always have my 2 cups of coffee, getting ready, rush to work.
Yeah.
So that's just it becomes almost lunchtime at that point, and so I usually skip breakfast.
Yeah, it's really common, and I think a lot of our mornings are just super so rushed and there's so many things we're getting ready for the day. And I think, it'd be a luxury to have time to put together a nice breakfast, but that's why I'm such a huge fan of overnight oats or like a yogurt parfait. Just make it ahead of time, grab and go, because I just think mornings are always going to be rushed for a lot of us. So, but thanks for sharing there, Caitlin.
I see a comment around dinner and snacks.
Okay, yeah. I'd be curious why dinner and snacks are a struggle for that person if they want to share, but I think maybe some common reasons. I mean, maybe it's a matter of, feeling exhausted by the time we get home for dinner, or maybe it's not having that plan, made up ahead of time and not even having the dinner plan, like we said, the three steps for meal planning. Do we have the groceries done so that we have all the inputs for the recipe we're going to make? So maybe that could be a bit of the reason, or maybe it's a struggle with the household with, maybe we have picky eaters in our household, and that's a hard one to deal with, and what meal's going to work for the whole family. So So yeah, let me know if that person provides a bit more detail. If not, no worries.
I'll keep an eye open, but Shannon
Okay.
offered here. Dinner is hard. I have to get the kids off to activities and have no time when I get home from work.
Fair enough. Yes, that's another one too, just being pressed for time in the evening as well. So when I think, especially if kids are involved in sports, I think factoring in, okay, what's gonna digest okay, before they go off to their sports and even time to, kind of create the meal there. So for sure, definitely another common struggle. Okay, good. Well, thank you everyone who shared there. Um, all right, so the next step, so shopping. So like once you've created your plan of the recipes you're going to make, I just sticking to that list. It's so easy to be distracted by going into the grocery store. Okay, here's something new, here's something else new, and throwing it into our cart. But I think it's so important to have a plan for the things that we're going to be buying, or else the likelihood is that it might be going to waste. Shopping at bulk food stores is actually a great idea too, and I think I often encourage people to go to Bulk Barn for things like, you might not expect. Like Bulk Barn's actually a great place to go for things like protein powders, or I'm really into legume pastas, lentil pastas, chickpea pastas, etc. And then you can get them in the bulk bins so that, if you don't like them, it's not a big deal. You can get sort of a small amount. So shopping at the bulk food stores are a great way to just to kind of control how much you're having, especially if you're a small household. You don't need to be going to Costco for every single thing and buying everything in bulk. So so the bulk brand's great. And choosing healthy convenience foods from like as needed too. Like, I always say to people, I mean, I do meal prep every week, but I think shopping is the worst part of meal prepping. It's just not enjoyable. I don't know. So, for example, if you need to get like the pre-chopped veggies, I mean, sure, you might pay a little bit more, but maybe if it's a matter of actually eating them and them not going to waste, maybe that increased funds is worth it. But yeah, so many convenient foods to kind of strategically put into your meal plan. Like let's get some zucchini noodles, or other spiralized veggies can be great. Baked salads, chopped baked veggies, rotisserie chickens, frozen fruit, frozen veg, like as pictured. These avocado chunks are really great too. So yeah, trying to kind of skip steps in the meal prepping process whenever you can to make it a bit more convenient. Um, and cooking. So, let's say if you are doing a big cook for the week, I mean, that's not necessarily how everyone has to kind of go about this, but and this is just what I do. I usually take on Sunday or Saturday, taking 2-3 hours to cook meals for the week and store things in the fridge and the freezer. The things that I'm going to be eating at the beginning of the week, I try to take from the fridge, so things like salads or bowls. And then again, it's soup season, so we can throw some chili, some soup in the freezer as well. Also, half prepping your meals. So I think like what I mentioned too about the quinoa or the brown rice being in the freezer, having certain components of your meals already prepped and ready to go, and chopping your veggies, having, let's say our protein marinated, is also a great way if you have a variety of kind of food preferences in your household, then you can kind of make your meal a little bit more versatile, I guess. You can like this person doesn't like peppers, no big deal. We can kind of do lettuce instead. So that might be a great way to kind of go about family meals and make it fun. Like it's like cooking doesn't have to be a chore. And I think have on your favorite show, your podcast while you're cooking, and then yeah, just make it a better experience. So there's just kind of a visual of half prepped meals, or I sometimes call this a buffet meal prep or ingredient meal prep, where you just kind of get those ingredients ready and mix and match. And to be honest, I'm not myself, I'm normally making full meals ahead of time, but this works for a lot of my clients. And a lot of these ingredients can be made in a few different dishes. So let's do a pasta one day with these veggies. Let's do a stir fry. Let's make my favorite things to make is a quesadilla at home, just with some extra veggies. You throw it in the tortilla and add some protein, and then there you go. That's a great way to use up some extra veggies that are about to go bad. I just wanted to kind of include this graphic here, how to build a balanced plate. So just recognizing that each of our meals, we should try to include for these components at each of our meals, if we can, at least 3 of the components of this plate into our meals. So we know carbohydrates are the primary fuel source for the body, it includes sugar, starches, and fiber. protein is used to build and repair tissues and also to make enzymes and hormones and other chemicals in the body, and that could be plant or animal protein. Our veggies are those that they're rich in micronutrients, they're low in calories and higher in fiber and fat. So it's a concentrated energy source, supports cell growth, and helps your body absorb vital nutrients as well. And this is just kind of a visual too of certain foods that fall under each of these categories. And there's kind of what I said up here, including 3 out of the 4 food groups minimum per meal. If you can, 4 to 4, which is great. And then you can also screenshot this if this is helpful to see. But yeah, so let's see if I'm putting together a quick lunch meal here. We've been just going back to what I'm actually now really wanting one of those mashed chickpea salad wraps. So that's a good way. So we got some protein with the beans. You can throw some Greek yogurt in there, some hummus, and then chop up some extra veggies to throw in the wrap. And then too, if you want to stick some avocado in there, great. That's actually for the 4 food groups there. But yeah, so many different combinations, but this is just kind of a blueprint or kind of starting point for us here. So, okay, now on to kind of more so focusing more on how do we make a meal plan that has more cancer fighting potential. So this actually, I work with many people, throughout the day. This is actually, probably like a fairly common way that people eat. We might have some oatmeal in the morning and kind of and maybe not even a protein porridge, but we might have, let's say, 2 packages of the instant oats in the morning before we run out the door. Let's say we have, some cheese, like a cheese string or something like that. Maybe we have some cucumber chopped up for a snack. And then let's say if we have, like I said, like the wrap, but like a lot of us use lunch meats there on our sandwiches or wraps, and then a dinner here. So we have some rice and we have some salmon. So I might also pose this question to the audience, kind of looking at this, is there any ideas for how we can make this meal plan a bit more cancer fighting? And like thinking about what can we swap, what can we add into this meal plan to give it a greater cancer fighting potential. And I'll show you how I kind of made it over during the next slide, but I just wanted to hear if anyone has some thoughts for how you would make this a bit more cancer fighting. So I'll give people a minute or so to think about that.
I would include berries in the porridge.
I love that. Yes, I might have done that in the cancer fighting meal plan swap on the next slide.
I'll include an apple with the wrap.
Okay, yeah, so additional fruit. Yes, that's great. Yeah, we want to be definitely upping our fruit servings, like 2 or 3 a day is great.
Someone else also saw the potential for berries with the porridge.
Yes, we're all on the same wavelength here. That's great. What about the lunch meat? Do we have an issue with the lunch meat?
Yeah, we have chicken in the wrap instead of processed meat.
Fantastic.
There's the answer.
Yes. Okay, good. So these are some good ideas here. I'll show you kind of what I did to kind of make this over. So yeah, so there's the berries on the oatmeal. Fantastic. I also included some nuts on there as well because we wanted to include some nuts into our day-to-day. And as well too, I actually included some flax or chia, I can't remember, seeds in there. By the way, these are all recipes you're going to get with the meal plan that's going to be emailed out to you. So yeah, that is going to be a really satiating breakfast option. And then just flipping back for the snack, I kept the cucumber, and not that we need to, necessarily get rid of cheese, but I wanted to swap some things in with more cancer fighting potential. So, so we have some hummus in the snack box there. So that's going to be those chickpeas there. So with those legumes, and then I threw in some more berries there as well. And yes, for the wrap, as mentioned, instead of the lunch meat, we did some chicken breast that's cooked. And then I also did some coleslaw. So that's kind of with those cruciferous veggies versus the other wrap didn't really have, I think there is maybe some spinach in there, which spinach is still really great. But I would say like a coleslaw with the other cruciferous veggies might actually have more cancer fighting potential. And then, so with the salmon, those salmon and rice, I mean, salmon is great. Again, high in omega-3s. But what I actually wanted to do was, instead of like, again, not that I'm discouraging us from eating rice, but swapping in those sweet potatoes, which have those it's like carotene containing food, so cancer fighting potential, some peppers as well, more carotene, and then the kale salad, which is a cruciferous veggie. So that's how we made over that first meal plan, and I have another one for you. So would love your participation with this one. So for breakfast, we have an omelet, a Hawaiian omelet there. We also have a banana cinnamon smoothie for snack. Then we have a classic macaroni salad for lunch. And then we have a slow cooker beef stew here as well. So any ideas for how we can make this meal plan a bit more cancer fighting?
While we're waiting for some suggestions to come in, maybe adding, again, fruit at any point of this. So I'm going to go with maybe um, with the omelet.
Okay, fantastic. Yes, definitely. Most people, as we've seen too in the stats, like don't eat enough fruit. So absolutely, adding some additional fruit to the omelet's a great idea.
Oh, we have a few more coming in.
Amazing.
Is homemade hummus equivalent to store-bought?
Oh, I mean, I would say probably fairly equivalent. I mean, hummus is usually just a few different ingredients, chickpeas, tahini, there may be some oil added. To be honest, I think if we want to make our own homemade hummus, you could, but I think the store-bought hummuses are actually like fairly on par with homemade hummus. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Could we add some vegetables to the macaroni salad?
Definitely, definitely. We could, yeah, the more veggies, the better. And again, like kind of 5 servings is what we should be aiming for. So looking at this, we probably don't have the full 5 servings of veggies in this day. So I'll flip to the next stage and I'll show how I kind of made it more cancer fighting. So with the omelet, I actually, instead of the ham, I took that out, and instead we were doing a spinach and salsa omelet. And then the salsa is actually a good source of lycopene, and remembering the cooked tomatoes are actually even a better source of that phytochemical lycopene. So that's why I was kind of doing the cooked tomatoes and the salsa. The spinach is actually a really good source of many different nutrients, but cooking your spinach makes the fat soluble nutrients more absorbable. And people who are looking to get more iron, cooked spinach is actually a better source of iron. And with the smoothie, what I changed it to is I threw some berries into the smoothie, and you can't tell by the picture, but I actually threw some spinach in there as well, and then some flax seeds, so for some omega-3s. And with that macaroni salad, I kind of made it over a little bit, and instead I did a lentil and chickpea pasta salad. So I did some chickpea pasta in there instead of the regular pasta. So adding those legumes in, and then some additional lentils. And to, I think, our comment, yeah, we added some more veggies in there as well. There's some spinach, there's some, or there might be kale in there. I can't actually quite recall, but you'll get all these recipes as well. And then for the dinner, I made it more. There's still chicken in there. Well, I guess there was beef in the other one. So instead of the beef, I changed it to chicken, and then I added in some beans as well. And then again, some cooked tomatoes, some cancer fighting potential in there. And then there's some quinoa in there as well, and avocado for some healthy fats. So yeah, so that's another meal plan that I made over, which again, you'll get those recipes. So that actually brings me to the end of my presentation. So I always love food puns. So I just wanted to kind of include that in there. And tomatoes are rich in lycopene, which we love. But just wanted to kind of share, yeah, so that's what the free cancer fighting meal plan is going to look like with the recipes that I showed there. And yeah, if you ever want to get in touch with me, you can follow me on Instagram. I'm always posting lots of fun, recipes each week. And if you're looking to get individual counseling done, you can reach out to me by email. You can also book through my website there. Those are probably the best ways to get in touch with me. But absolutely, I think we have about 10 minutes left. So if there is any questions, you can certainly type in the chat box and we can kind of go into that a little bit more, but you can also connect with me through these means after the presentation as well. So thank you everyone so much for listening to the presentation. I'm just going to stop my screen share here, but I'll keep my video up here. So yeah, thanks again.
Microphone on always helps. I want to say a big thank you for teaching us so much and sharing so much information with us tonight. I know you made meal prep feel very doable for me, so I look forward to doing that and adopting that habit or giving it a good try anyway. So I will go from the perspective that any little bit will help. So thank you. We'll give it a couple of minutes for any questions to come through the Q&A section. I do apologize. There were some great suggestions that came for the meal prep ideas. So there's some really creative folks out there about how to enhance the meals that you had. So I want to thank everybody. If you have any questions, put them in the Q&A and we will we'll pass them along. So we have some thanks coming into you to you as well through the chat.
My pleasure.
Perfect. Nicole, I have two questions for you. So the first one, you had mentioned about adding oil before you bake or roast veggies. Would you recommend a specific oil? I know some of them have different burn points, and so.
That's a good question. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I probably should specify that. So my go-to is normally avocado oil for higher heat cooking. And avocado oil has a high smoke point. I believe it's around 470 Fahrenheit. So usually, and then that smoke point is, or kind of like a burn point is kind of the temperature past that the oil starts to break down. And then even speaking to kind of this whole topic, there's a potential for those compounds to be carcinogenic. So we definitely want to be paying attention to the smoke point of oils. So avocado oil is probably one of the most heat resistant oils out there and has the best fatty acid profile too, a lot of monounsaturated fats. Another good oil to have on hand is extra virgin olive oil, although it's not super heat resistant. I believe its smoke point's about 350 Fahrenheit. So not really great for a lot of cooking. If you're doing really low heat cooking, it might be okay, but it might be best just to reserve it to things like salad dressings and marinades. So yeah.
Thank you. And then my second question was around tofu. I know years ago we kind of got a bad reputation saying that it increases estrogen and then it also leads to breast cancer and things like that. So I was just kind of hoping that you could provide some information on that.
And I should have included that in my presentation as well, and yeah, that was one of when I first started, became a dietitian. Actually, one of my roles was teaching cooking classes for people who have cancer. And in those classes, I would get that question all the time. A lot of people who attended to my sessions were people who have had breast cancers before. So of course they were kind of wanting to be wary of tofu and soy. I think what we've seen in the research with soy, soy is a phytochemical and it's a phytoestrogen. Sorry, I should say it's a phytoestrogen. It's structurally similar to estrogen, but it doesn't actually hop in our body and increase estrogen levels overall. And what we've seen in the literature is that a correlation between higher population consumptions of soy and actually lower incidences of things like breast cancers. And and it can actually, we've also seen two other studies that including soy in your diet can actually help to reduce the reoccurrence risk of certain types of cancers like breast cancer. So it would be something I would promote to add into our diet. I know that tofu can be even a tricky one to figure out how do I make this tasty and incorporate that into our meal prepping, which I can certainly speak to as well. But soy is a-okay, and it can actually be a helpful thing for certain types of cancers.
Thank you. And another question we have is, what do you recommend for people with a sweet tooth? Is there a healthy dessert you would suggest?
And maybe what I can say too is like for sure, I have lots of healthy dessert ideas, but I think even just, even though I'm mentioning about, these great, kind of whole food options and trying to minimize added sugars, I think it's so important to not kind of stress to like, we don't need to be perfect all the time. I also think it's also okay to allow ourselves to have, a dessert every so often that is sort of not a swap for a healthier dessert, but I can definitely give some healthier dessert options. So I mentioned like the chickpea cookie dough can be a great idea. You can buy chickpeas. I think I have a recipe on my website with some nut butter and then a few other mix in. And it's literally the texture of cookie dough. Or I like to do lots of things with berries. I mean, doing a yogurt bark has been something I've really liked. So you spread yogurt on a baking sheet, and then you can sprinkle some berries and drizzle some nut butter on top, and then freeze that. And it's kind of, you just break it apart after it's frozen. So that's a really great option. I do a lot of things with chia too, chia puddings, and making that into something really creamy and delicious. Or one other idea, I'm a huge ice cream fans, but you can actually make a nice cream with just some frozen bananas and blend that with some frozen fruit with a little bit of plant milk, and it's almost the texture of soft serve ice cream. So yeah, there's just a few ideas off the top of my head.
Sound delicious. Thank you so much. I have a question. I'm a big snacker. What do you recommend for a what's your favorite quick grab snack between meals?
Yeah, actually, what I've been loving, and I'm in my office right now, and I don't think I have any because I think I ate them, but they're roasted edamame beans that are already kind of put in a package, and it's just I'm always like to stress sort of a quick protein and fiber rich snack. So I think they have something like 11 grams of protein and 5 grams of fiber or so, and it's even though I like to cook, it's also nice to get some pre-made snacks every so often. And I think it's important too for families, being realistic. We can't make always everything with our own hands. So it's important to have these really great grab and go options. So they're great. I mean, choosing a good protein bar. RX bars are really great options too. They're just a few ingredients there. But yeah, I would say, yeah, probably the roasted edamame, or they have roasted bean snacks as well, like lentils or chickpeas. So yeah.
Thank you. Wondering if Caitlin, you could remind us how we can get the meal plan.
So the meal plan will be emailed out to everybody that registered, and then Nicole and I will work on a process for anybody that wasn't able to attend tonight just because of busy schedules. We will have it available on our Instagram.
Wonderful. Thank you. I don't see any other questions in the chat right now, but I would just like to take this opportunity to thank everyone for taking the time out of your evening tonight to come and listen to Nicole and all the information she had for us tonight. I learned a lot, Nicole, and so I'm very grateful for your time as well to spend your evening with us. So thank you so much for your time.
Amazing. No, thank you so much for having me.
Well, with that, I think maybe we'll call it a night, and everyone can start thinking about their healthy snacks that they're going to grab after this call is done. So thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, everyone.